Welcome back to Tipping Point. I'm your host, Kara McKinney. Imagine being a homeless homeowner. That's what's happening to one Seattle resident as he often parks the van he lives in outside the home he owns in the Rainier Valley area. The reason why he can't go inside his own house is because a squatter lives there, a tenant who owes almost $30,000 in unpaid rent, not even counting utilities. This isn't someone who's necessarily down on their luck either, because the squatter rents out the downstairs room on Airbnb for over $430 a night and makes an estimated $2,000 to $4,000 a month from it. That's a pretty good deal when you're paying no bills and you didn't have to buy anything first to even rent out, so it's just pure profit coming in. The court system will take at least an estimated 12 months to kick out the tenant turned squatter. Until then, this homeowner just has to grin and bear it, because there's no incentive structure in place or legion of lawyers who make money off of trumpeting his types of cause. In fact, it's just the opposite. All the legal, political, and financial incentives are built in favor of the squatter. There are so many wars going on these days that it's easy to forget a few along the way. So, just because you may have forgotten about the war on property owners doesn't mean it's forgotten about you, amid all the real war we see brewing in Eastern Europe and now once more in the Middle East. During the COVID years, with all the rent freezes, we saw the squeeze being put on property owners as if they were a problem to be dealt with. I know personally of families who lost everything and had to sell their own homes because their sole source of income was from having rentals, but then no money was coming in, but they still were paying the mortgages. That Seattle guy, I should mention, he's still paying the mortgage on his house that the tenant squatter lives in. Now, was this part of the BlackRock buy-up of residential homes to turn us all into forever renters? Perhaps. There was some overlapping, seeing as these two issues kicked off around the same time. If all this makes you feel like the world is beginning to seem kind of fake and phony, a house of cards nearing collapse, just wait until you hear about the jobs report scam. Because all this government help or leniency for the takers of society, like that Seattle squatter, is supposed to be borne by a productive tax base. But that's drying up too. Our next guest, writing for the Epic Times, says, quote, "Every month, the problem seems to get worse. The Bureau of Labor Statistics comes out with a big headline number of utter joy, and the press repeats it like parrots. Wall Street consumed by traders desperate to be first, buy like mad in light of the news, even though the smart people know it is likely fake news. But we live in times when perceptions are more real than reality itself, so who cares?" End quote. Joining us now to discuss is the author of that piece, Jeffrey Tucker, the president of the Brownstone Institute. Jeffrey, thanks for being here tonight.
Sure. Thank you, Kara.
Great. So talk to us about this jobs report scam, because the numbers seem relatively good. That's why Bidenomics, the White House trumpets, we have low unemployment, everything's going great. But you and others have dived into those numbers. The jobs reports, it's not all that meets the eye, correct?
This is the worst jobs report we've seen in at least 2 years, probably 2.5 years. But you wouldn't know that from the press release, which is very disturbing. In the old days, people always believed that the BLS was just a bunch of stodgy economists and scientists, not political people. They just reported the facts as is. There was a kind of a wall of separation between the White House and the statistical agencies, so you could trust them. Well, they're abusing that trust right now, and somebody at the Biden administration has gotten to the BLS and got them to report the headline number in the very first sentence and manipulate that number. And then that number is the one that the press reports, including the Wall Street Journal, because they're all racing each other to get into print so they can get the most clicks, right? So, and this goes on, then the markets go up, and then it takes, the real people a couple of days to look at the actual data. I have been doing this now for about 6 months. Like when the job report comes out, I actually look at the real data. But they're getting better, Kara, at hiding the truth deeper and deeper and deeper, to the point that this is the worst, as I said, the worst jobs report we've seen in probably 3 years, 2-3 years. And just for example, the number of full-time jobs lost in this month was as the biggest we've seen since March 2020, if that gives you an indication. And most of the job creation was either government jobs or double counting of second and third jobs, which are part-time jobs. And this is all buried in the data. You had to dig really deeply